Hello, everybody. David Serpa here, Chapter 4 of All the World's a Stage, Unmasking Asperger's Syndrome or Autism Spectrum Disorder or High-Functioning Autism or whatever it is they're calling it. I tend to be a little long-winded. And this chapter is about being autistic and having special interest. And here we go. Chapter 4, Finding Your Dinosaur and Enjoying Special Interest. I'm hoping that you guys aren't going to watch Mac poop right behind me. That'd be a really unsettling background. Hey, Macintosh. Come here, Bubba. Okay, finding your dinosaur, enjoying your special interest. When you're 5 years old, everyone is super jacked up that you know all your dinosaurs. When you're 35 years old, you better be getting paid for it. I have shifting fields of study, but I'm normally pretty heavily into whatever my dinosaur is at the moment. A dinosaur, in the way that I use it, is whatever your field of study is. We have difficulty with this aspect in our lives. Because we're so interested in our chosen topic. There are a lot of fantastic authors that touch on autism, but also have other fields of interest. I have several dinosaurs at the moment. My music, my writing, books, theater, real estate, human trafficking, veteran issues, and social injustice. You can imagine that most human beings don't want to be greeted with a barrage of statistics about human trafficking at every greeting. Even though I believe this is the largest issue of our time, the buying and selling of human beings. I can't work it into every conversation that I have, or people will stop talking to me. A funny example is Walter from The Big Lebowski. He's fixated on Vietnam. Everything goes back to Viet fucking Nam, to the point where he's always screaming at his friend that didn't serve, "You're out of your element, Donnie." Walter doesn't let it go. He lives in a perpetual fixation on Vietnam. Vietnam is his dinosaur. I'm not implying that Walter has autism, just a funny example. In the Netflix original series Atypical, we see Sam, a teenager on the spectrum, obsessed with penguins and the North Pole. Doing what you love and getting paid for it has its boundaries, or it has its expertise. If you can write consistently enough on one topic, maybe you can monetize it. But it's not often that we can monetize our places of special interest. This is why I believe that you should pursue everything you are interested in with great abandon. Fortune favors the bold. In the article, 3 Things You Need to Know About People with Asperger's by Penelope Trunk, an author who has Asperger's, as does her son, Penelope says that she had a job at a bookstore where she had a simple job, alphabetizing, sorting, had limited customer interaction, where she was the expert and she enjoyed it. At Blockbuster, I had the same thing. I enjoyed it a great deal. She goes on to say the reason why we stopped doing these jobs is because we're ashamed of having such a high IQ and doing jobs that don't require a high IQ. I called working at Blockbuster the best dead-end job that I ever had. I was able to talk about movies to people who appreciated me for my ability to talk movies. I alphabetized videos and DVDs, and it all made sense to me. Ultimately, I drew a hard line when I felt like I was being undervalued, and I ended up leaving. Stubborn and directionless. So how do we help our children get away from these situations? We meet them at their dinosaur. The friend that had confided to me that she believed that her daughter was on the spectrum told me about the time that she tried to meet her daughter at her dinosaur. The result, it was expensive and no one really enjoyed it. She had brought her neurotypical daughter along and it was expensive. They talked for a long time about the artwork and it wasn't fun. The day was disappointing. It was expensive. It was not the day that mom had pictured. I asked her, who was it that said that it was stupid first? And she admitted that it may have been her. The difficulty with all of you wonderful parents seeking to find your way into your little introverts is that it is easier to admit defeat than to hope for something better and be let down. So parents tend to cut themselves first. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. What a waste of time. I blew it, mom says, trying to get there first. It would hurt too much if you had spent all of that money on your young Aspie and she'd walked out and said, that was awful. And then all of a sudden, and then went off to give a list of reasons why it was awful. Parents deny themselves parents deny themselves of the opportunity to truly see their child shine. We very rarely get to talk about our dinosaurs, yet alone have someone sit there with us. I believe my grandfather, who I love a great deal, may also be on the spectrum. So I meet him at his dinosaur when I can. He loves technology, and he also loves sports. It's good for him to have my grandma sitting there with him while he discusses his baseball knowledge, and so she obliges. Just like when she did for the little professor, myself, all those years ago when we would sit in the backyard cracking pistachios and making up stories. People on the spectrum like to be listened to, like anyone. Unlike anyone, people don't always like to listen to us all the time. Many of us sound like we are manic, and so we are mocked by people around us for the way that we speak. When we can cut loose and download with someone that we love, it helps us center. This is also why I'm an advocate for therapy. Downloading is what I like to call when a person on the spectrum starts rambling about their day or a thought and they seem to go on forever. The thought seems incoherent, but if you allow them to speak, you will realize that it is part of a long reason for what they are telling you. They just wanted you to understand their thought process or how they came to their conclusion. Another example of meeting someone at their dinosaur is when my first wife played fantasy football with me and my fellow Marines. This was something that I was doing to have something to talk about to other Marines, and I get a little obsessed. That year, I went to the Super Bowl. When things were breaking down between us, she mentioned that she had even tried to play fantasy football. It is easy to share obsession with people with Asperger's, but there is a time that it is part of an escape or a quiet time. We often grab onto the things that are ours, and we identify ourselves by what this says about us and who we are. The realtor, the rock star, the author. It is part of an escape or an adventure into a world that we would rather live in. You will have to do some homework on what a good dinosaur is and what it isn't. But I will tell you this. If you want to share a household with another person, follow this advice. Ask first, listen, respond, proceed with a download. You will not forget what you need to tell them if you write it down. Example number 1. Spouse 1 has been at home pacing around the house all day. There are notepads everywhere, and spouse 2 has been gone. Spouse 2 walks in the door, and spouse 1 looks up and says, "Oh my God, I have to tell you about fill in the blank." Example number 2. Spouse 1 has been at home pacing around the house all day, but an alarm goes off at 4:45. They take a minute to write down their stopping point, clean up their mess, and when the door opens, they say, "Good afternoon. It's good to see you. How was your day?" Listen, respond about the day, and then proceed with the download of what you had discovered earlier that day. The dinosaur often gets shut down by parents or invalidated by society because they don't see a useful application for the special interest for the person that is on the spectrum. The special interest can be a way to help them understand and relate to the world. It can be a cause or surround a specific time in history that they enjoy thinking about. But most of all, special interests help us self-soothe. I don't discourage people from diving into their special interest, however inane society may deem them to be. We may never get paid for our special interests. That doesn't mean that we can't enjoy them. For people with autism spectrum disorder, special interests are a way to participate with the world. It can be a way to decompress or recharge. As long as we are keeping up with our everyday lives and the people in them, we should not discourage people on the spectrum from participation in their special interest. Thank you guys for watching. I'm David Serpa. Feel free to check out my book, Unmasking Asperger's Syndrome, or All the World's a Stage, Unmasking Asperger's Syndrome on Amazon. Have a great day.